the gift that wealth could never buy. Maria's hands trembled as she overheard the conversation through the partially open door of Mr. Harrison's study. The words cut through her like shattered glass. 3 months. Maybe less. I'm sorry, James. There's nothing more we can do for Emily. She pressed her weathered palm against her chest, feeling her heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. Sweet Emily, the little girl with golden curls and eyes that sparkled like morning dew, was dying. Maria had cleaned the Harrison mansion for 7 years. But somewhere along the way, the job had transformed into something deeper. Emily wasn't just her employer's daughter. She had become the child Maria had never had. The light that made her long hours and aching knees worthwhile. James Harrison was a man who could buy anything. His tech empire sprawled across continents. His name adorned hospital wings and university buildings. He'd already spent millions seeking a cure for Emily's rare blood disorder, flying to specialists in Switzerland, Japan, and every corner of the world where hope flickered, however dimly. But money, for all its power, couldn't purchase more time. The bone marrow registries had been searched exhaustively. No match existed. Emily's body was rejecting treatments, and her brilliant, larger-than-life father was helpless. Maria retreated to the kitchen, her sanctuary within the sprawling estate. She'd arrived in America 15 years ago with nothing but a tattered suitcase and dreams wrapped in desperation. She'd worked 3 jobs, sent money back to her aging mother in Guatemala, and built a quiet life in the shadows of other people's grandeur. She'd never accumulated wealth, never lived in luxury, but she'd always had something more valuable, a heart that couldn't turn away from suffering. That evening, as Maria prepared, Emily's favorite? Soup, the one with tiny star-shaped pasta that made the 8-year-old smile. She watched the little girl through the kitchen window. Emily sat in the garden, her thin frame dwarfed by her father's embrace. Even from a distance, Maria could see the toll the illness had taken. The vibrant child who once cartwheeled across the lawn now moved with careful, measured steps. Her skin had taken on a translucent quality, like porcelain too fragile for this world. "Maria!" Emily's voice, though weakened, still carried notes of joy as she entered the kitchen. "Did you make the star soup?" "Of course, mi amor," Maria replied, blinking back tears as she ladled the golden broth into Emily's favorite bowl, the one with painted butterflies. "Extra stars just for you?" As Emily ate, chattering about the book she was reading and the drawings she wanted to complete, Maria made a decision that would change everything. That night, after the household had fallen silent, she sat at her small desk in her basement room and researched what she'd only vaguely understood from the doctor's conversation: bone marrow transplant, tissue typing compatibility. The next morning, without telling anyone, Maria took the bus to the hospital where Emily received treatment. Her English, still accented after all these years, faltered as she explained to the receptionist that she wanted to be tested as a potential donor. The nurse looked at her with gentle skepticism. The odds of an unrelated person matching were infinitesimal, roughly 1 in a million. But Maria was insistent. "Please," she said simply, "I need to try." The blood draw was quick. The waiting was agony. Maria continued her daily routine, dusting furniture that already gleamed, preparing meals with extra care, reading stories to Emily in the afternoons. She watched Mr. Harrison age before her eyes, his powerful shoulders bowing under the weight of impending loss. She saw how he held Emily's hand a little longer, how his voice cracked when he said goodnight. 2 weeks later, Maria's phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. Her hands shook as she answered. "Miss Santos? This is Dr. Patricia Chen from Memorial Hospital. We need you to come in immediately. Your preliminary tests show that you might be a match for Emily Harrison." The room spun. Maria gripped the kitchen counter, certain she'd misheard. "A match, me?" "It's extraordinary," Dr. Chen continued, her voice tinged with amazement. "We need to run more comprehensive tests, but the initial markers are incredibly promising. Are you willing to proceed?" Maria didn't hesitate. Yes, whatever she needs. The confirmation came 3 days later. 10 out of 10 markers matched. Maria Santos, a housekeeper who earned $15 an hour, was Emily Harrison's miracle. But when the medical team explained the procedure, Maria finally understood what her decision truly meant. The donation would be painful, requiring days in the hospital, weeks of recovery. There were risks: infection, severe pain, potential complications. And the cost of the procedure, even with insurance, would be staggering. Maria thought of her mother's medical bills back in Guatemala. The roof that needed repair before the rainy season. The savings she'd carefully accumulated over years of sacrifice. Then she thought of Emily's laugh. The way the little girl threw her arms around Maria's waist every morning. The crayon drawing on Maria's bedroom wall that read, "I love you, Maria," in uneven letters. "When do we start?" she asked. That evening, Maria knew she had to tell Mr. Harrison. She found him in Emily's room, reading to his daughter from a worn copy of The Secret Garden. When Emily fell asleep, Maria asked if they could speak privately. In his study, surrounded by awards and photographs of a life built on achievement, Maria told him everything. James Harrison, a man accustomed to control, to solutions bought and paid for, broke down completely. Tears streamed down his face as he struggled to comprehend what this woman, whom he'd barely noticed, beyond her quiet efficiency, was offering. She was giving his daughter life and asking nothing in return. "Maria, I don't know what to say. The expense, the risk to you? I'll cover everything, of course. Your salary during recovery, any medical costs, whatever you need." Maria shook her head gently. "Mr. Harrison, I don't do this for money. Emily is—" Her voice broke. "She is sunshine. She is why I smile when my back hurts from cleaning. When she shows me her drawings, I forget I'm tired. I cannot let her go if I have the power to help. This is not about payment. This is about love." The surgery was scheduled for the following week. As Maria prepared, the story somehow reached the local news. Wealthy CEO's housekeeper saves his daughter's life. Reporters crowded outside the mansion, but Maria refused all interviews. This wasn't about attention or recognition. It was simply what her heart demanded. The procedure itself was grueling. Maria woke in a hospital bed, her body screaming with pain. But her first words were, "How is Emily?" The transplant team worked through the night. The harvested marrow was a deep red, thick with the cells that would rebuild Emily's failing immune system. As it flowed into Emily's small body through an IV line, everyone in the room held their breath, praying for acceptance, for the miracle to take hold. The weeks that followed were tense. Both Maria and Emily recovered in the same hospital, and Mr. Harrison moved between their rooms like a man in a dream. He sat with Maria, this woman he'd barely spoken to beyond pleasantries, and learned her story. He heard about her mother, her journey to America, the daughter she'd lost in childbirth. Years ago, a grief she'd buried so deep that speaking of it felt like excavation. "Emily filled a space in my heart," Maria whispered one afternoon, tears rolling down her cheeks. "She gave me purpose. How could I not give everything to save her?" 4 weeks post-transplant, the test results came back. Emily's body was accepting the marrow. Her blood counts were rising. The little girl was going to live. When Emily was finally strong enough to understand what had happened, she insisted on seeing Maria. Mr. Harrison wheeled Maria into Emily's room, and the little girl, still weak but with color returning to her cheeks, reached for her hand. "You saved me," Emily whispered. "No, mi amor," Maria replied, kissing the small hand. "You saved me first." James Harrison did something unprecedented. He held a small ceremony at the mansion once both Maria and Emily had fully recovered. Before family and staff, he spoke with raw emotion about what Maria had done. Then he announced that he was establishing the Maria Santos Foundation, dedicated to recruiting bone marrow donors, particularly in underrepresented communities where matches were desperately needed. But more than that, he did something even more valuable. He insisted Maria move into the main house, into a suite near Emily's room. He tripled her salary, covered her mother's medical expenses, and sent for her to visit from Guatemala. But most importantly, he saw her, truly saw her, as the extraordinary human being she was. Years later, at Emily's high school graduation, the young woman stood before hundreds of people and told her story. She spoke of the maid who became her guardian angel, the woman who proved that the truest wealth isn't measured in dollars but in the boundless capacity of the human heart to love. Maria sat in the front row, older now, her hair silver, her hands still strong from years of work. As Emily called her to the stage and embraced her, Maria wept, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming joy of watching this beautiful young woman live the life that almost slipped away. In a world that often equates worth with wealth, Maria Santos had shown that the greatest treasures cannot be purchased. They can only be given freely, from one heart to another, in the ultimate act of selfless love.